The numbers told the story, they always do.
It's one of those idiots who believe in analytics.
This is a numbers game with Gill Alexander on VSiN.
Hour number 2 of a numbers game at VSiN, the sports betting network, VSiN.com, Game Plus, iHeartRadio, YouTube TV, and of course, Sirius XM Channel 158. It's Gill Alexander flying solo from Circa. Kelly on assignment in Nashville, Tennessee. We're like, let's send him on assignment. I don't know where. Hey, how about Nash Vegas? That's where we'll send him. Kelly will be back on Friday. Still to come, Crack Unscripted. An hour from now, Bill Krakenberger, whatever's on his mind, sports betting-wise and beyond, we will pick his brain. We don't even have to pick his brain. He just vomits it out. And we look forward to that conversation as we do every week. Still to come also this hour, we will hear from Warren Sharp. We've gone through everybody's NFL preview guide, it feels like, except for Warren. So we will right the ship on that here coming up. But first, making his triumphant return to the program after a fabulous summer where we had him on all the time to talk World Cup. Man, World Cup feels like it was, I don't know. Man, I was about to say it feels like it's a long time ago, but actually it feels like exactly the length of the length of time, the appropriate length of time since its conclusion. It's Paul Carr. You agree with that, Paul? First of all, great to see you.
Good to see you, Gil. It's good to be back. Yeah, the final was a month ago yesterday, which I guess feels about right. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine for these players, like, these guys who played all the way till then, they finally get a couple weeks off, and then, they're right back at it. So some of these guys, it wouldn't surprise me if a few of them are eased back in. But it's a grind on these players as well. I
have to admit, both Kelly and me, like when you texted and you're like, hey, can I come on this week because it's premiere? We're like, what? We were sort of startled by that. So
the Community Shield is like the semi-preseason lid lifter for the Premier League. It was last weekend, and it started, and I got the alert on my phone. I was like, oh, okay, we're going now. So all those early season stuff has started. But yeah, Premier League starts in earnest tomorrow.
Wow. Okay. Well, we have 7 season-long bets that we're going to get to. Before we get to the specific bets, and a lot of those are plus money. All of them are plus money, except for one of them. Let's just talk broadly. Your first sort of headline, your first sort of topic sentence was, the table is compressed. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Basically, there's a pretty clear top 2 to 5 teams, depending on where you want to draw the line. There's a pretty clear bottom 3 then those are all the newly promoted teams. But that middle, that 6 to 17 range is just a big, shrug emoji. Like any of those teams almost could finish anywhere. And just been reading a lot and a lot of previews. Almost everyone's got their favorite team that could do well or not. Like almost nothing would shock me if any of those teams 6 through 17 finished anywhere in the table. There's obviously likelihoods and all that stuff, and we'll get to some of that. But I guess maybe the best analogy that I can think of to American sports is like SEC football, where the middle has gotten better, like in the arms race. Similar thing in the Premier League. These middle teams have more money than almost every European team except for your Bayerns, Real Madrid, Barcelona types. And so they're just getting better. That middle is just moving up and getting more congested. So whatever happens there is probably not going to be super shocking this year, one way or the other.
In the NFL this year, one of the headlines is we have 21 new offensive coordinators. Like there's 32 teams. We have 21 new offensive. It's ridiculous. Wow. Something sort of similar in the Premier League this year?
Yeah, we have 11 new managers from the start of last season. A couple of those joined midway through the year. And 4 of the top 5 teams have new managers since the start of last year, including Manchester City. Pep Guardiola is gone for the first time in a decade. So there's much more of a question. Man City's, margin for error or error bars are probably a little wider than they have been. But yeah, City, Chelsea, Man United, Liverpool all have new managers since the start of last season. 4 of the new 11 guys. So there's a lot of some familiar faces, some not, some you like, some you may not, some in good situations, some not. So there's a whole bunch of new possibilities there as well.
You just referred to the Community Shield, which is probably not familiar to most American sports fans, but there was a result there that did affect odds to win the Prem, right?
Did it ever? So Arsenal and Man City played. It's always the Premier League winner against the FA Cup winner from the previous season. And there's a trophy on the line. It's kind of preseason, kind of not. It is an official game, though. Arsenal won 3-0. And before that game, your title odds were roughly Arsenal 150, Arsenal 160, and City was around plus 280 most places. Now, I've seen Arsenal as low as plus 105 to win the title, and City as high as plus 370. So that's a big reaction to one game that Arsenal was better. It was more like a 2-1, 2-0 type of game than a 3-0. It was not a shellacking. It wasn't as bad as the score indicated. Arsenal scored early and just kind of ran out the clock while scoring with their few opportunities after that. So it's been interesting to see the reaction as the money just clearly starts coming in like this last week, but a big reaction to one single game in the title odds.
Paul may have tipped his hand on one of his first bets coming up, but we'll save that for after this one last thing, which is, and I didn't know this was a thing, but you were talking about set pieces and how like it's a really high percentage of goals were scored on set pieces last year.
Yep. Yeah. Led by Arsenal, who had the most in the league. 27% of Premier League goals were on set pieces last year. Set pieces meaning corner kicks and free kicks. This is not counting penalties. Corners, free kicks, throw-ins. 27% was the highest in the Premier League in the last 15 years. And aesthetically, it made the game just kind of ugly. Guys were just, how many players can you fit in the 6-yard box in front of the keeper and distract him or interfere with him accidentally to help create scoring chances? Now, at the World Cup, the officials did a really good job of preventing that. They sent out information beforehand, talking to players and teams about that. The Premier League is doing a similar thing before the season, where they say they want to cut down on that physicality, on that interfering with goalkeepers. Will they, and will they all season, is a big question mark. And if they do, that could affect not just Arsenal, but kind of everybody. I mean, because every team was kind of on board with this, calling it a meat wall in front of goal by the end of the season. So how that's going to play a little bit more from an aesthetic standpoint will be an interesting storyline this year.
That sounds like a lot of previous NFL off seasons were like, well, we're going to do this, we're going to enforce this, and the refs do it for the preseason. Then by the time week one comes around, everybody forgot about it already.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, maybe they will. I hope they do, because it is just, again, it's better to watch if you're not just congesting the box and making a mess out of things. But we'll see if they do and how long it lasts.
One last thing, and this might tip a hand on. I lied. One more thing. This might tip a hand on one of your plays too. But whenever we're going through the Premier League table, I sort of get interested in this record at the bottom, because there's always a side that seems to flirt with it, at least from the table standpoint. But then it never sort of happens. The record is Derby County, who managed only 11 points back in, was it earlier part of this century, I believe it was?
07, 08, I believe.
You think a team will legit flirt with this year?
Hull City could flirt with it. I mean, look into various computer models that spit out like 14 points, 19 points. So they're in range. Last year, like Wolves was kind of in range for the first half, but they really weren't that bad. They weren't good, but they weren't 11 points bad, and they ended up, I think, with 20. Burnley had 22. They were probably worse, but got more points. Hull City, I'll get into the numbers a little bit, but they're a newly promoted team that looks ripe. I mean, I haven't seen a single preview that picks them not to finish last, or at least not to be relegated. They're like minus 650 to get relegated.
Oh, man.
Even shorter some places. So this is not expected to be a good team.
Minus 650 to finish bottom three. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's start. By the way, all of Paul's picks are up on Yahoo. He does full team by team season previews on the Ringers Wise Guys YouTube channel as well. Man, you're everywhere these days. Good for you.
Getting busy. Yeah. Right back at it.
Getting busy. All right, let's start with the dude. We don't have to throw up all of his picks right here, Danny, but let's start with the ones that we just alluded to, the top and the bottom. I think you may have called your shots on these, but let's start with the top, where you said, okay, this line moved, and it felt like you were saying it's an over adjustment. Maybe you're going the other way.
Yeah. Look, Arsenal's the best team, and obviously the most likely to win the title. They're down close to even money. So that is the play. If I'm picking straight up, I'm taking Arsenal for sure. But at like plus 105, plus 120, I don't think they win the title that often. So obviously then the question is, who else is a contender? Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United are your next four. And I still like Man City at this price, at plus 350. I played it. You can get it at plus 370 right now. It might creep higher in the next day or two. I'm not sure. And the reason, I guess, the most likely thing this season is Arsenal is going to be basically what Arsenal was last year and has been for the past 2, 3, 4 seasons under Mikel Arteta. Pretty steady, Maybe not quite the high ceiling that some other teams had, but they're right there in the title race. That's what we saw last year. But Arsenal left the door open last year, and Manchester City had the opportunity. They were favored in the last third of the year at one point to win the title before dropping points themselves. So I think we'll see that again this year. City still has plenty of talent. They have Erling Haaland, of course, the best striker in the world. They have so much attacking talent with Jeremy Doku on the wing. He's a Belgian guy people might have seen at the World Cup. Ryan Cherky was coming off the bench for France, but he's great in attack. So plenty of guys that City has. The question for City is the new manager. We mentioned Pep Guardiola is gone. Enzo Maresca comes in. He'd been at Chelsea last year, was not very good. He was at City as an assistant for a couple of years recently. Probably a little more conservative than Pep Guardiola is at times. But, I think he's at least a average type of manager. So City's going to have that door open. They have the upside. I think they probably have more upside than Arsenal if they got it all figured out offensively. So at plus 350 or better, I have played that to win the title.
Is Guardiola moving on more Belichickian or more Tomlinian, if you will? Tomlinian.
I think it's Tomlinian.
Okay.
He hasn't taken a job elsewhere. There have been reports going to Italy or a national team that haven't really played out yet. I suspect he'll come back at some point, but I don't think it'll be this year, and I don't think it'll be unless it's just the perfect situation.
Okay. So Man City to win the title, plus 350 from Paul after the over-adjustment this weekend. We'll get to his other season longs. He's got 6 more, including the bottom. I think he tipped his hand on who he might be betting to finish last. But 5 more on top of that. Every which way, the Premier League with Paul Carr, right here on a numbers game. Pardon me, at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Numbers game on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Most people think sports betting is about picking winners. Ungambled is built on a different idea: matched betting and arbitrage. It's a tool that teaches you how to use sportsbook bonuses and promotional offers to capture value, whether or not your side covers. And Ungambled backs it up. If you don't turn a profit on your bankroll in 8 weeks, they refund your membership. To learn more, start with a free guide at ungambled.com/VSiN. That's ungambled.com/VSiN. And use promo code VSiN for 10% off. Bet sharp, look square. It's Gill Alexander. Just want to read a couple tweets here. Chance Copperpot. I have to agree with Will on Hard Knocks. I binged watch all of the new season last night. I thought it was pretty good. Pardon me, I don't know overstated. He says, I thought it was pretty good. And the last few seasons have been meh to me. There's a very long scene with the slow motion spiral that seemed like filler. Oh, that sounds exciting. And this is from Xavier82. I hope Will's first play on the Megapod is the Titans over the Jets in Week 1. Robert Saleh returns to stomp his former team into the ground. Let's go. NFL almost here. Yeah, man, you get me charged up. And then Bob Timus Prime. He's kind of all over the place in this tweet. He says, I also had a rough year last year, trying not to let it creep into this year. I never let the quote-unquote eye test have any weight. I think that was a mistake. It's hard to balance how much weight to give it, though. That's the art of picking, I guess. Yeah, Optimus Prime, if it was easy, right? If it was easy to solve this puzzle of sports betting, man, we'd all be on a beach, right? So it's a puzzle. It's always difficult. It's always an alchemy of different things. Numbers, motivations, all kinds of things, which we'll get into Warren Sharp here later in the hour. And let's see. Scotty. Good morning, Gilt. Doing a great job flying solo. Thank you. Could you please ask Paul Carr if he's also Arb Thief? I don't know who that is on Twitter. Cheers. I'm pretty sure he's not. It's Paul Carr, ladies and gentlemen, courtesy of the Progressive Guest Line. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Carr, C-A-R-R. He works at TruMedia Networks. He doesn't just work there. He's one of the guys that runs the show over there, I believe is a proper way to phrase it. Paul Carr joins us now once again from the Heartland. You are not you don't have another Twitter account, right? No.
I don't have time for that. I'm not Arb Thief.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, didn't think so. All right. So season longs. Man City to win the title. Paul already talked about that. Plus 350. Let's get this one out of the way because we already talked about it. Hull City, then you're betting to finish last, I'm guessing?
Yeah. I got him at plus 120 last night. If there's plus money out there or even paying a little juice, I would still like it. Let me put it this way. So last year in the championship is the second division. Hull City finished 6th in the championship, and they won the playoff between 3rd through 6th to get to the Premier League. Their expected goal difference meaning, basically what their goal difference should have been based on the shots taken and given up, was minus 19, which was second worst in the entire 24-team league. They overachieved by one of the top 4 team from an overachieving standpoint over the past 10 years in the league. And generally good defense translates better than good offense when moving up to the Premier League. Well, their defense was terrible. They gave up the second most expected goals, the third best shots in the league. And while they've made a lot of signings since then, there's no like big wow signings in there. So it's really hard for me to see how they don't finish last. So I got a plus 120, and like minus 110, minus 120, I think is still interesting. Any projections you see under 20 points is pretty normal. So it's really hard for me to see them not finishing last.
I just looked at the map to check out where Hull City is. So it's East Coast, north of Birmingham is essentially where it is, for those who care about such things. All right, then there's the top 4, those that advance to the Champions League, top 4. And you have a
top 5 will advance, actually. So you can bet top 5, obviously different prices. Yeah, I like Chelsea here. So, Arsenal City are kind of a given. And then you've got a tier of 3, Chelsea, United, Man United, and Liverpool, that presumably are fighting for 3rd and 4th. And I think Chelsea has the most upside here. Their most important transfer for the offseason was probably their manager, Xabi Alonso, who was at Leverkusen, Real Madrid briefly before he was fired last season. That was really more for not getting along with players and or front office than on the field results. And now he's coming into a Chelsea team that was finished in 10th last year, but their underlying numbers were closer to 5th. So they're not as bad as they ended up last year, and they have a lot of talent that they just couldn't figure out. Cole Palmer, Joao Pedro, Esteval's a young kid. They've got their Pedro Neto, lots of different guys who could come in and score goals. So they have to figure that out. But I'm really confident in Xabi Alonso. I think he's a good manager. So that's the biggest reason. He's just going to kind of steady the ship and be the adult in the room at Chelsea. And with that, I like them top 4 at minus 120.
Top 4, Chelsea, minus 120. This is the only minus bet of all of these. The rest of these are in plus money. Let's do top half and bottom half. You made a bet on each of these.
All right. Yeah, I got Crystal Palace top half. They finished 15th last season, but they were 10th at the midway point before they kind of faded because the last half of the year they were focused on the UEFA Conference League, which is like the CBI, basically, the third European competition. But they won that tournament, and that's what they were really focused on once it was clear they were safe from relegation and such. So they are more of a 10th place type of team or better. They also underachieved from an expected goals standpoint significantly last season, scored 33 non-penalty goals, but were expected to get about 52. So that's a pretty big gap that they could, even if they just kind of revert back to that, they'll be pretty good. Most of the attack is still back, at least at the moment. They do have a new manager. Got Pierre Sage is coming in from Lens in France, but I like his resume, so I think they'll be all right. A year ago, they were 155 to finish top half, and now they're 250, and there's not a lot that has changed here, I don't think. So yeah, plus 250 is good for me on Palace to finish top half.
Got to finish in the top 10. That's the top half. Crystal Palace plus 250, and then Aston Villa bottom half plus 275.
Yeah, sort of the opposite story. Villa finished 4th last year, but ran super hot, exceeding their expected goal difference by 12, which was second best in the league. Lost a handful of players. So I'm looking at them at bottom half at plus 275. They're also going to be in Champions League this year, which is obviously good for them, but also means, it's the old you're fighting a battle on multiple fronts problem, where Villa doesn't have the depth of the top few clubs, and they're not as good as those teams. They can't take as many, take a Champions League game off if you're playing a lesser team or something. So I think they're going to struggle. They could be about as good as last year and still fall down the table pretty easily. Because again, that 6th through 15th to 17th is pretty tight. It was only like 5 or 6 points separating half a dozen spots last year. So they drop, they drop a few points just as they're not running as well, and a few more because they're in Champions League, and you're down in the bottom half. So plus 275 on the bottom half for Villa.
I like the SEC comparison you made earlier with the middle that is more murky than the top and bottom.
Right.
Okay. Now I don't know this for a fact because I didn't go back, but by recollection, this is the best historical Paul Carr category of season longs, which is team to be relegated. You've hit these a couple years at least, and all at good prices. You're taking a shot this year in this category as well.
Yeah, last year we got Wolverhampton at plus 300, 330, something like that. Mm-hmm. A couple years ago was think it was Southampton, like plus 110. This year I'm going with Sunderland at plus 350. So they're the fourth favorite to be relegated. Hull City we covered. The other two new teams up are Ipswich Town and Coventry City. I think one of those two is going to survive. They're pretty close. I could be persuaded either way. And I think Sunderland is the best candidate to drop down in. Now, it may seem odd. They finished 7th last year, but they ran super hot, especially early. They ran about 15 goals. The expected goal difference was about 15 goals worse than where they actually were. Didn't take a ton of shots, didn't take a lot of shot quality. And they had a lot of comeback wins, which is, that's good for them, but that's hard to sustain. They didn't score first very often. So they haven't changed the team a whole lot. And they're playing in Europa League, which is the NIT of European soccer. So they've got the two front battle issue too. Didn't bring a lot in. If they play back last season again, they're probably in the bottom half. And they could easily, lose a few more points and really struggle here. So plus 350, I think that's pretty good on Sunderland to be relegated.
All right, Paul, we saved the best for last, at least the longest shot for last here. Golden Boot, you are taking a flyer. Boy. What do you got?
We hit a 40-1. We split a 40-1 like 4 years ago on Son Heung-min for Tottenham. So I'm taking another 40-1 on Cole Palmer of Chelsea to win the Golden Boot. Took him last year at 28-1. Didn't come close, but it happens. It's a 40-1 shot. I'm not saying go bet the house on it, but it's worth a sprinkle to me. Here's the case. We always talk about you have to take penalties and you have to play for a good team.
Yes.
Cole Palmer takes penalties, so that's worth probably 5-7 goals, we hope, this season. Plays for a good team in Chelsea. We covered them, a top 4 team, I think. He's got a new manager, Xabi Alonso, who I think will play him in kind of a more of a dual 10 spot that he likes. Basically get him more up the field, closer to goal, have more opportunities. So you get 5 or 6 penalties. He's shown he can score, 15 other goals. And once you top 20, you got a decent shot at it. Now you're still kind of betting that Erling Haaland is going to get hurt, so he doesn't score 25 goals. But at 40-1, I think that's worth a sprinkle on Cole Palmer.
All right, we'll go over these towards the end of the show as well, but let's rifle through them. Man City to win the title, plus 350. Chelsea, top 4, minus 120. Crystal Palace, top half of the table, plus 250. Aston Villa, bottom half of the table, plus 275 when all is said and done. Sunderland to be relegated, a Paul Carr special at plus 350. Then there's Hull City. I forgot about that one. Hull City to finish last at plus 120, flirting perhaps with the all-time low record of points. And then Cole Palmer of Chelsea, Golden Boot, 40-1. Paul, let's do it. We'll have you on tomorrow. Tomorrow over a 3-pack of plays.
You betcha. We'll be back.
Okay, Paul Carr, double-header, 3-pack of plays starting out the Premier League season tomorrow. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. At Paul Carr, by the way, on Twitter. Works at TruMedia Networks. We'll come back. Warren Sharp on the NFL next.
A numbers game on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It's a big day around here. We got our second annual Pro Football Futures Draft happening 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. So it's during Follow the Money. Dustin Sweetelson will actually be the master of ceremonies for our 2026 VSiN Pro Football Futures Draft, our second annual. 13 VSiN hosts and guests facing off in a fantasy football style snake draft hosted by the great Dustin Sweetelson. Every pick doubles is a handicapping breakdown you can use. Win totals, division winners, player props, and stat leaders. Last year's competitors all back for round 2. Defending champion Patrick Maher, by the way. He will be in the number 1 position in terms of the draft order. He's got the first pick in the draft. Joined by 3 newcomers this year stepping into the Futures Draft room for the first time. Super Bowl winning wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson will join us today. Comedian and sports commentator Nick Bakay. Looking forward to that. And the guru, John Hansen. Don't just watch the Futures Draft, profit from it. Tune in today, once again, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, only on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We're all looking forward to that later today. So as I was saying earlier on the show, hey, the VSiN Pro Football Betting Guide, we talked about that extensively this summer. Our buddy Aaron Schatz came on, talked about the FTN. Aaron Schatz's FTN Pro Football Almanac. Cleve TA, our buddy, with his football guide. And there was one big omission. We didn't have Warren Sharp on the show, and we absolutely make good on that right now. He is the author of the very cleverly titled Warren Sharp's book, the 2026 Football Preview, which, man, I don't know how many years he's done this for now. I'll ask him that right off the top. It's Warren Sharp, everybody, who you can follow on Twitter. One of the most popular Twitter follows in terms of the football season there ever is at Sharp Football. Warren joins us now. First of all, where are you, Warren?
I'm back in Northern Virginia. I just got back from the Outer Banks. A few weeks prior, was down in the Bahamas. So we've taken some vacation. I've improved my tan, and that's going to fade away during the course of the season progressively as I stay locked in this layer, working on, predicting the outcomes of all these games all the way through till February, Valentine's Day this year, Gill, as you well know.
As we well know, the Super Bowl is on Valentine's Day. Start preparing them. And you know by who I'm talking about. Start preparing them for a Valentine's Day Super Bowl. Okay, Warren, let's just start with that question. How many years have you done this now, this Pro Football Guide?
Yeah, so a few years I was just posting PDFs of this document, and it became a book first for purchase over on Amazon in 2016. So this is my 11th year doing it. Right now we're at 619 pages. I got it here. And you're right, Gill.
Look at that.
Omission didn't come on earlier. Yeah. And so we're going to make good on that. You said we're going to make good on it by having me on. We're going to make even better on it for everybody who's listening. You can get this 619 page book over at Amazon right now. I think it's like 25% off on sale. You can just search for it. If you want the PDF for you guys, Gill, it's going to be absolutely for free.
Wow.
It's just going to be called, go to my website, sharpfootballanalysis.com, and enter the code FREEBOOK. And everybody who's listening today only will get the book for free. I apologize. We're late in the calendar a little bit. Preseason week 2 starts tonight. Everybody's got to get up to speed on my predictions for this upcoming season, how I think things are going to play out. So you can do that very quickly without spending any money using that code FREEBOOK.
Love it. Sharp Analysis, sharpfootballanalysis.com, sharpfootballanalysis.com, free book, promo code. He'll send you the PDF for free. You obviously preview every team. You do fantasy stuff. It's the extensive guide. I mean, you just held it up there. That thing is unbelievably dense. I want to focus, and this is kind of it's kind of been synonymous with you here. You've made this your thing, which is schedule. Now, we'll start with the sort of broader category, which isn't necessarily only your thing. We'll start with toughest schedule, easiest schedule. And then we'll work our way from that into some of the more unique Warren Sharp sort of scheduling angles. But let's just start with the top 5 in each of those categories, strength of schedule.
Yeah, so top 5 easiest schedules. This was updated as of last week. I factor in looking forward at the upcoming season based upon the odds that are current by the sports books. I don't look at 2025 win-loss record or anything in the past. Top 5 easiest schedules: the Lions number 1, the Bengals number 2, Saints number 3, Jets number 4, Baltimore Ravens number 5. The one that stands out to me here a little bit is the Cincinnati Bengals, because I think the AFC North is down a little bit. If you look at all of those other teams that are in the North, obviously we know about the Cleveland Browns, but I think the Baltimore Ravens making some adjustments with a new coaching staff. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike McCarthy coming back to work with Aaron Rodgers, but is this the same Aaron Rodgers that Mike McCarthy was working with in Green Bay, where they were pushing the ball down the field, trying to gain explosives to Devontae Adams? This seems to be the Aaron Rodgers who just wants to get rid of the football underneath, try to survive, to live another play, doesn't want to take any hits in the pocket. Joe Burrow has been excellent against teams outside of the AFC North. If you look at the last 4 years, he's 23 wins and only 9 losses against all other divisions, but he's 8 wins to 11 losses against the AFC North. If he racks up a few more wins against the AFC North this year, and he's now going up against the second easiest schedule in the NFL, I think the Bengals are going to win enough games to not only put themselves back into the postseason, but make themselves have some intrigue there amongst the AFC upper echelon. I took them over 9.5 wins. I took some alt overs on their win totals. I think there's some upside for the Cincinnati Bengals, as you see their schedule displayed there on the screen. Last year, they lost 49.8 EPA from turnovers. That was the third worst mark of any team. They trailed in 16 out of 17 games. They allowed the number 2 most fourth quarter points. Their EPA per play on third downs inside of field goal range, which is a key statistic that I look at. Are you turning those into first downs so that you can score touchdowns, or are you going to have to settle for field goals? They were the fourth worst of any team. We know Joe Burrow was injured. I was on the under of the Cincinnati Bengals last season on their win total, expecting them to struggle and expecting, quite frankly, Joe Burrow to have to carry that team. And if Joe Burrow was injured, that would be a problem. Joe Burrow got injured. Bengals struggled. I think they go over their win total this year.
Very, very strong case for the Cincinnati Bengals. Second easiest schedule. By the way, the easiest schedule, the Detroit Lions, as you point out in your guide in the Warren Sharp football preview. Lions play just 6 games against teams expected to have a winning record this season, 3 against teams expected to have 10+. That's how easy their schedule is. What about the toughest schedules, Warren?
So the 5 toughest schedules based on pure strength of schedule. We're going to talk about rest in a second with Gill. 5 toughest: Arizona Cardinals, Miami Dolphins. It's just hilarious. Those 2 teams that are projected to be the 2 worst also have to deal with the 2 toughest schedules. Then you've got the Carolina Panthers. Interesting notes on them. Washington Commanders, Gill's team, and the Dallas Cowboys round out the 5 most difficult schedules. If we talk about the Miami Dolphins here just briefly, I think it's interesting. They play the 3rd most difficult prep and rest schedule, which factors in some other components that we're going to be talking about momentarily in terms of teams that you're going to face that are off of a bye or have extra rest than you, whereas the Arizona Cardinals actually have an easier schedule in that regard. The Miami Dolphins also play the Las Vegas Raiders in week 1. They'll likely play Kirk Cousins, which is going to make life a little bit more difficult for them in that respect. They've lost a number of skill players. Their secondary might be the worst in the NFL. And then you've got Malik Willis taking steps from behind center. And Malik Willis excelled in Green Bay, if you want to call it that, because the Green Bay defense was able to hold opposing offenses to like 13, 16 points. And so he was able to win games 14-13 or 16-13 or 17-14, that type of score. This Miami Dolphins defense, Jeff Hafley's first year there, they are not going to play as well as Green Bay's defense did last year. They have some of the worst talent in the NFL. They're going to allow a lot of points. I think he's going to struggle. I bet the Miami Dolphins to have the fewest wins in the NFL. I think that was like plus 400 when I got it. It's like maybe plus 375, something like that right now. And then if we want to touch on the Carolina Panthers briefly, another interesting strength of schedule nugget here. They played the 4th easiest schedule of pass defenses last year. This year, I've got them going up against the number 2 most difficult schedule of pass defenses. I think Bryce Young is going to struggle immensely against this schedule of pass defenses. I think the Carolina Panthers are going to struggle to win games this year. I bet them under their win total. I also bet Bryce Young under his passing yardage total. I think he's going to be in for a rude awakening against this difficult schedule of pass defenses he goes up against in 2026.
I love it. Backing it all up with bets. I love it, Warren. Warren Sharp, our guest here this morning. After the break, we got a minute to the break, but after the break, we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts, some specifics when it comes to the notion of net rest edge, net rest disadvantage, net rest delta, that kind of thing, which Warren has just been great through the years. I want to just ask you 2 macro questions beforehand. One, does the NFL care about this stuff that you sort of expose every offseason? Do they care about scheduling imbalance, generally speaking?
Not to the degree that I do. They try to bluff it off like it doesn't matter at all, when in fact it does play a role, especially if you're talking about teams that are coming off of 3 days extra rest or 3 days less rest. There are some rest situations that matter more than others, but the league primarily cares about who's on TV. How can we get the most ratings on these games to earn the most TV revenue from our advertisers, etc.?
Comes down to the money. The other question, which I'll ask Warren after the break, before he gets into it, is, does this translate? Like, do we have the evidence that this translates into betting edge? And I believe we know the answer to that. Coming back after the break, Warren Sharp, right here on A Numbers Game at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
A Numbers Game on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back on A Numbers Game live from Circa Resort Casino, downtown Las Vegas. It's Gill Alexander. Warren Sharp is kind enough to join us for one more segment here this morning. He is the author of the Warren Sharp 2026 Football Preview, which Warren was already kind enough to let us know that if you go to sharpfootballanalysis.com and put in the promo code FREEBOOK, he will send you a PDF of his book for free. Of course, you can get the hard copy the old-fashioned way as well. at Amazon and other likes. You can go to his website, sharpfootballanalysis.com, get it that way as well. But for the free PDF, sharpfootballanalysis.com, free book, very simple, promo code. Warren, thank you for that. That's very generous of you. Appreciate that. One more question before we dive into this, which is what we're about to get into, the notion of how the schedule makers, either wittingly or unwittingly, how they end up benefiting some teams over others. Other teams just get the absolute worst of it in some cases. This does translate over time to being able to make it actionable betting, correct?
It does. Look, if you just looked in the past at CBA and 2011 and how they changed things, bye weeks don't matter as much anymore. So you have to dig into more things. Used to be, this team's coming off a bye, they have extra rest. Well, now teams coming off a bye over the last decade, they're 48.2% ATS, which is negative 7.9% ROI. So coming off of a bye is actually a detriment. What is really beneficial is when you, a little bit later in the season, after the first 6 or so weeks, you are playing with 3 to 6 days rest edge. So you have a mini bye or something along those lines over your opponent. Your opponent played on Monday. You have a little bit of a slight extra rest, but you're not off of a full bye. What that allows you to do is keep the guys in the building to practice more, because that's what the CBA was eliminating. Those teams have a 54.6% ROI. They are 54.6% ATS, 4.2% ROI. So a massive swing, not having a full buy, but having a smaller rest. And there are some other edges that I talk about in the book that you guys should check out. But it definitely does matter, but the league wants you to think that it doesn't matter whatsoever. So they could, hurt certain teams certain years, help other teams. And some teams have been getting hurt year in, year out, like the LA Chargers.
Yeah, well, let's start there. The teams most hurt by the NFL schedule makers in 2026, starting with the Chargers. The floor is yours. Explain this to us.
The Chargers, the Eagles, the Dolphins, the Steelers, and the Kansas City Chiefs are the teams that have been hurt the most. I'll give you an example. The Chargers face negative 24 days of net rest. That ranks as the number 4 largest since 1990, the number 1 largest net rest differential of negative rest since 2013. They play 7 games where they have a rest disadvantage. They play 4 teams that come off of a bye, which we know doesn't hurt quite as much as in some years past. But mini buys have been proven to be even more valuable. They play multiple games against key AFC foes where those teams are coming off of those mini buys. So that's brutal for them. And then I mentioned before, the Miami Dolphins, not only do they play a tough schedule, they also play one of the worst net rest edge schedules in the league. They play just 1 game with a rest advantage all season long. Obviously, that's the fewest of any team in the NFL. They play 5 games where their opponent has more than a week to prepare for them. So it's just tough for the Miami Dolphins this year from a prep and rest standpoint as well.
Yeah, I mean, both of those teams, right? Chargers and Dolphins, their schedules, especially the Chargers, right? The schedule, even if it was equal, on an equal footing, it's a hard enough schedule, right? It's a gauntlet after the first 2 weeks, but you add on top of that they get the worst of it with the net rest. Who gets the best of it this year with rest edge?
So the Chicago Bears are number 1 from a net rest edge perspective. Then you've got the Dallas Cowboys at number 2, the Titans, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. The Chicago Bears are the interesting one to discuss because they're plus 15 days of net rest, the most in franchise history. So they should benefit there. They struggled last year when they were playing on short rest or with a rest disadvantage. They were successful when their rest was equal to their opponents. They play 4 key games with 3 days of net rest. We talked about how this was impactful, not having a full bye, but having those mini buys. Listen to some of these teams they're playing with 3 days of net rest. The Seahawks, the Lions, the Jaguars, and the Saints. So the Seahawks and the Lions, 2 teams they might be battling for in the NFC. They get 3 days of net rest edge over those teams. So I think that they're in a good situation there. There's some things working against the Chicago Bears this year, obviously some regression factors that are playing against them. The schedule will play for them, and hopefully they get a fair shake with the Bears tax and the penalties, all these things that have been called against them in the past. Hopefully that gets a little bit better situated this year, and they have a better shake of it from that respect.
You do a great job of this as well. So let's take that delta. So the Bears get 15 days of rest net advantage aggregate over the course of the season. You just talked about the Chargers getting 24 to the negative, right? So that's the delta. Plus 15 for the Bears, minus 24 with the Chargers. That delta, where does that rank historically?
That is the largest straddle that I've seen when I started doing these net rest graphics and boxes probably like 6 years ago, I was looking, it's gotten wider and wider and wider from the haves versus the have-nots across the page. And this is the worst that we have seen as far as I can track back, which is to 1990 between the haves and the have-nots. So good for the Bears, bad for the Chargers.
Yeah. And as we talked about, NFL, doesn't care. As long as we can get the best teams in the primetime games, we don't care about all this other stuff. But good for you to know about your betting. That's the whole point of this. Okay, let's talk about teams. This is the other thing I think that's great to point out, because there's obviously going to be people listening to this who are like, is this really like? Just go back to last year. You point this out in the guide. And the guide has great detail on stuff like this. You just go back to last year. There were 5 teams with over 7 days of positive net rest, so plus 8 or better on the season last year. Guess who they were? Seahawks won 14 games, and by the way, the Super Bowl. Rams, largely considered, 1A, 1B, whichever order, they won 12 games. Niners won 12 games despite all the injuries. So it matters. And if you look at the bottom of it, right, 3 teams with over 7 days of negative net rest, minus 8 or worse. Raiders won 3 games. Commodores, that's the Commanders, they won 5 games. Saints won 6 games. So you just have to look back to last year to see that it played out that way.
Well, and one thing, Gill, like you talk about the Seahawks, everybody's like, oh, well, of course, the Seahawks, they're a great team. They won the Super Bowl. What was the Seahawks' predicted win total last year entering the season? They were not expected to go this far. I want to say they were 60-1 to win the Super Bowl before the season started. This was not supposed to be an elite mega team in 2025, but they did have the benefit of having an outstanding schedule of prep and rest. And I'm not saying that's the only reason they had success, but it definitely played a factor. This is a brutal 17-game schedule. There's only one team that gets a bye every year in each conference. It's more important nowadays to just have those extra little advantages and take it, use those to your benefit where you can get them.
In the interest of time, because we only have a couple minutes left, because we can go into so many other tentacles of this, but let's skip ahead and say something good about the schedule into this year. You were good at seizing on a few things. Negated bye weeks, the notion of negated bye weeks. In other words, teams that have byes, the assumption is that they have a rest advantage coming on after a bye week. So sometimes it doesn't work out that way, and so therefore you call them negated bye weeks. And then there's a notion of 3 games in 10 days, 4 games in 17 days. All 3 of those categories kind of to the better this year?
Yes, much improved by the league makers. They really screwed teams a lot when Christmas fell on a Wednesday, and they tried to move these Wednesday games and really screwed certain teams there. And then they implemented some of these 3 and 10 days in other points of the season. They cut that out completely this year, so we don't have that at all in 2026. We only have one team, the Buffalo Bills, who has to play 4 games in 17 days. So that's the only team that has to deal with that. And there are only 3 teams that have negated bye weeks this year, which is down from what it's been in the years past. And, having a bye does give you the benefit of having that extra rest and the players can go do something. But when your opponent has a bye at the same time, some of that little benefit just isn't there. We're seeing improvement from the league in that regard as well.
Yeah, only the Rams, Packers, and Titans have the negated byes this week, so only they get the worst of it in that regard. No teams have 3 games in 10 days. I remember this became an epidemic last year, right? And 4 games in 17 days, only once. The Bills get that situation once, huh?
Yes, exactly. The only way you can play that is you go Monday, short weekend to Sunday, another Sunday, and then a short Thursday game. The Bills are the only team who has to deal with that gauntlet this year. Starts Monday Night Football in Minnesota, Week 10, ends home against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's their 4th game in 17 days, Week 13. So circle that one on your calendar.
Warren, love it. The guide is worth it alone. Your football preview is worth it alone just for the schedule analysis. And, of course, it gets into team-by-team fantasy and all other kinds of things. Again, if you want your free PDF, sharpfootballanalysis.com, a free book. If you want the hard copy, you can go to sharpfootballanalysis.com or Amazon, available there. Warren, enjoy. I'm sure we'll be talking during the football season, but enjoy the first day of it coming up here in just a short while. Appreciate you coming on.
Can't wait, Gil.
Warren Sharp,
Thank you.
anyway. Thank you. At Sharp Football, by the way, on Twitter. Just a great football follow during the season and off season as well. Crack Unscripted next.